So we're going to begin with the big schools and work our way down to the little guys as we typically do. And let's begin in Division 3, Region 10 with the Mansfield TY Tigers. And you want to talk about not having a carefree, stress-free Friday. Wow, what a whirlwind it was for Tigers fans who weren't allowed to go to the game. They had to move the event all the way to Rocky River, but they won big time. I think they set a couple of offensive records. And now, guess what they get? The #1 team in the state, and I think the biggest favorite to win in any division, the state championship, outside of maybe Marion Local in Division 7. But Toledo Central Catholic, the defending Division 2 state champions, moving down to D3, Travis. And this Irish team who averages 41 points per game, their season low, 28 points per game. They've scored 83 so far in their playoff games against Bowling Green and Defiance. And last week, though, maybe the biggest test that they've had all season. They did get kind of pushed. They needed 2 kick return touchdowns to win that game. So you're looking at the Tigers, who also had a great week, winning 9 straight, outscored Lex and Rocky River 85-34. And during this win streak, the Tigers have put up a lot of points, 30 plus 8 times, Trav. So you telling me there's a chance? Well, no, that's what I'm telling you. I think it's at least going to be an interesting game that you can't count out the Tigers, but they're going into this one a healthy underdog, probably a couple scores.
Yeah, well, not only going up against last year's Ohio State champion, but a Catholic school champion in the Detroit area, because Toledo Central Catholic plays Detroit Catholic schools because nobody else will play them around in the Toledo area. So you could say they're the best team in not only one state but 2. But these TY Tigers, Chokey Bradley, he had his guys ready after everything that went on. You knew he was the right guy. That was the right team to go on in week number 12, but it's the TY Tigers. They got a pretty darn good defense. They have a lot of good playmakers as well going up. This should be a good game. I think this is going to be the best test that Toledo Central Catholics had all year, just because this is a very battle-tested Mansfield Senior Tiger squad. And, there's going to be I think there's going to be people outside of our area that are going to be very surprised at the outcome of this game, win or lose for the Tigers, because this is going to be a good one.
Senior has got a senior quarterback. They got the stars on the outside. Almar doing his thing. But defensively, you brought that up, Travis. They've only allowed 23 points in the last 5 games of the regular season. So this team's hitting its stride at the right time, has not lost in a long time against some tough competition early on. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game. And you see there at the bottom, Tiffin Columbian and what they were able to do, kind of exposing Ontario a little bit with that high-powered offense. You got to kind of like the #3 seed to move on against either the Tigers or Toledo Central Catholic, who, like I mentioned, though, they are a big favorite to move on and win the entire enchilada. All right, let's move on ourselves here, and let's check out Division 4, Region 14, where we've still got the Shelby Whippets, the #3 seed. They got 10 wins, but they got to go up against state #5 Glenville, who also is a defending state champion. The Tarblooders, 15-0 last season, and arguably the most dominant team in the state as the D4 state champs. They lost to Hoban in Week 8. Since then, though, check out this stat, Trav. They've outscored their last 4 opponents 171-14. Yoinks!
They actually put up the 3rd most points ever in a playoff game. I tweeted that out on Friday night. I just had to go through, looking through, since 1990, 71 points, the 3rd most. It's tied with 2 other teams who put up 71 on Friday night and the week before. And then Massillon put up, I think, 74 or 75 a couple years ago. So Shelby has one of the best offensive performances in the state of Ohio ever in playoff history, and they're going to need that against Glenville. I think if they want to win against those Division I recruits, those Ohio State commits, they're going to probably have to get into a shootout. They're going to have to, really get the pass game going and also have that rush game going. But if they play like they did last week, especially in that second half, again, I think people are going to be very surprised at the outcome of this one.
Whippets did put up those 71 points against a Van Wert team that gave Glenville their best game last year, and I know that was a season ago, but offensively, Shelby should be equipped. I mean, they've scored 207, Trav, since Week 8. That's only a handful of weeks ago, and we've seen the defense play inspired at times. They did have shutouts in Weeks 10 and 11, so I think that they also could make this a very competitive game. Looking at it as an outsider outside of the area, you might think, well, the Tar Blooders, all those recruits, like you said, coming off the state championship.
Yeah.
This should be an easy one for them, but not so fast, my friends. This sophomore quarterback, Braden DeVito, this pass is 51 yards on the fly, on the money.
He's put up numbers. We talked about not only him, but Bogpin Miller at Ontario. These two guys, the way Braden DeVito can run the ball and pass, I keep saying it, he should be at least up for consideration for Mr. Ohio. I don't care if he's a sophomore or not. He is putting up huge numbers that, like I said, one of the main reasons why they put up 71 against the Van Wert squad that had some very good playoff success in the last few years. But look at those passes and look at the players he has. He has Lance out there. He has Isaiah Ramsey, and then they also have a rushing attack. So, like I said, if they want to get it, if they can get into a shootout, I think they have a chance. That defense, they can make one or two plays, a couple plays. I mean, are you going to be able to contain Glenville? I don't know with what they have. But if you can make a couple plays, maybe get the ball back once, get a couple stops, momentum. Or can Glen? You know,
that's right.
The main question: can Glenville
shut down the baby goat? That's the
Whippets.
question we should be asking around here. Maybe we're asking all the wrong questions. And then up at the top of your screen, you see West Holmes. They got to take on the Perkins team, who I think aren't they ranked number 2 in the state?
They've
been
a tough test, though. They had a tough test though.
Almost
last
everybody.
week. That was their first one. Their first test that they had was last week. They had to come back and win by 7. But West Holmes also
had to come back in the
waning
last
seconds, knocking off Gallion on a tip drill
heartbreaker
touchdown.
Sorry, Tigers. But West Holmes, they're kind of one of those teams that now they've seen it. They've been in the playoff picture for the last several years, been to this distance quite a few times, so they may be able to give Perkins a game at Harding. Let's move on. Division 6, Region 22. The 9th-ranked team in the state, Columbus Grove, is going to be taking on the 4th seed in Cary.
Baby!
Grove hasn't lost since Week 3 versus Patrick Henry, who's still playing. Cary hasn't dropped a game since Week 2 versus Gallion, who was almost still playing, but both the Bulldogs and Blue Devils, they are nasty on defense. A combined 7 shutouts for these two, so I think it's going to be a big physical game down in the trenches. But these Blue Devils, Travis, I've seen it. I've witnessed with my own eyes. They've got a great coaching staff. They got dudes that are nasty. They're physical down in the trenches. They had 6 different players score touchdowns this last week, and that way they're a little bit fresh. Eli Steen, he's the sophomore. He's kind of the bell cow who will get 15, 20 carries, but they can bring in 4 or 5 other different guys. They just cycle them through into that backfield. And with Carter Smiley running the offense, I think this is a
Nearly
very
1,000 yards passing,
dangerous team. I kind of like the Blue Devils.
Talk about their defense, though. Guess how many sacks they have on the year?
A lot.
27. 27 sacks.
Couple of games.
26 takeaways, 18 interceptions, 8 fumble recoveries. This is that, remember that Cary defense that took them to a state championship game?
Oh, you see some parallels, huh?
Right up there with them. And then they have, I think Carter Smiley's ability to pass the ball, especially as of late, has really opened things up for them. They had a bit of a passing game, but they relied on the run. Once again, that state championship run. And with Eli Steen, a mini RV, what would that be? Like not a Winnebago.
Yeah, they had the Winnebago.
Airstream, that's it. Yeah, it's the Airstream, not quite the RV yet, but the Airstream. That's exactly what I was thinking of. But Eli Steen there, and they also Niedercore 500 yards rushing,
Beast.
Norden 300 yards rushing,
Beast.
Putnam 273, and then you have Carter Smiley with 971. However, Alex Putnam also with 267. So you may see a little pitchy woo woo pass out there from them, some trickery they could pull out their sleeves. But this is again a Cary team that has been very, very impressive this season and back in the Sweet 16.
I don't know if they've got pitchy woo-woo up on their whiteboard, Travis, but whatever they're doing, they've scored 48 or more 4 out of their last 5. The Dogs, though, have scored 40-plus 5 times this year. So while I think it's the defense that's going to end up winning it for one of these two teams, they both have an offense that can get it done. So who knows? Maybe a team who cracks into the upper 20s gets the win.
Yep.
Definitely going to be a fun one at Fostoria. I'm going to be on the call for that one. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Columbus Grove, real quick, passer best sophomore, 1,267 yards passing. They have a rusher, 1,388 yards receiving, and then they have a couple receivers too. But it's just like one of those teams that they faced in that tournament run before.
Yup.
Cary blanked number 5 seeded Columbia as well last week, which was one of the most impressive wins in D6.
All right.
Let's
move on.
Because another impressive
D6.
win coming up.
Region 23, The Golden Knights of Northmore got to go up against state number 2 Garaway with a spotless 12-0 record. The Pirates outscoring their playoff opponents 94-14 so far. They've only been held under 40 points twice all season, Travis, and they've only allowed multiple scores 4 times all year. So while I know that you're going to make a great case for these Golden Knights, boy, is this by far their biggest challenge of the year. I think maybe even a bigger challenge than the Blue Devils of Danville.
I would have to say yes because Garaway's a little bit more balanced. Garaway, their junior quarterback, 2,100 yards passing. They have a junior running back with 1,000 yards receiving, but 1,000 yards rushing. But they have most of their receiving yards coming from one player, which is a key because Northmore has a very good secondary, so they might be able to shut that down and allow them to play the run a little bit. But the Golden Knights, a 2,200-yard passer in A.J. Bauer.
Oh, you don't say.
A 1,000-yard rusher, well, off by 14 yards, but Carson Campbell, a sophomore, 986.
Weapons.
And they have multiple 600-plus yard receivers in Jack Swinger, 778 and 14 touchdowns.
Woo.
Bo Landon, 638 yards
Woo.
and 12 touchdowns. And then if you need somebody at the goal line that wants to punch it in,
Who
you
they
got
got?
Paul Kramer.
Okay.
That can punch in 11 rushing touchdowns to go along with Campbell's 12. So they have that balance. They don't just go to one guy, maybe like what Garaway does with their receiving core. This is going to be a game. After what I saw from Northmore last week, the defense only gave up 103 yards rushing to Trimble, or total yards to Trimble, and the only points that Trimble scored was on a pick 6, the one mistake by A.J. Bauer. So this Northmore squad, they are ready to go.
Saving their best for last, Travis. They've won 7 straight, scored 30-plus 6 times during that stretch, and they've held 6 of those opponents to 7 or fewer points. So I do like what we're seeing from them. On to Division 7 Region 25 we go, and the Downton Bulldogs going to be playing St. Paul, number 13 seed, making a case for themselves to get into the regional championship. The Flyers have won 5 in a row. They upset Toronto, put 56 on them. Mr. Berger went off for a whole bunch of touchdowns in that one. And then Malvern, 20-14 on the road. And I think that combo of Ben Berger and Josh Pokos, they've been kind of a crazy 1-2 punch that you definitely don't want to overlook because they're the number 13 seed.
2,753 total yards combined. 39 total touchdowns combined between Mr. Pokos and Mr. Berger. Pokos, one of the top rushers in the area, and our folks in North Central Ohio are going to get a treat because this game is going to be at Ashland's Community Stadium.
Dig it. I like the venue. I like the matchup. The Bulldogs, their only loss. You got to go all the way back to week 1 versus Kirtland.
By 7, I believe.
Who may win Division 6 this year.
Yeah.
Who knows? Grayson Siders, he's a big play waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. I have not seen somebody that has as many carries and touches as he does. He's averaging 12 yards per clip every time he gets a rush, Travis. He's got 30 touchdowns now on the year. He might be the most explosive player that I've personally witnessed this season. Got to watch him just go bananas against Lucas last week. And then, there's that matchup. I think of the 2 defenses in this one. Can one of them slow down the other rushing attack? I don't know. I don't think so. I doubt it. I think this one's going to be definitely in the 30s. The winner might be in the 40s and probably about 300 total yards rushing.
Yeah, this is going to come down to the defensive lines and linebacking cores of both sides because that running game, you might see a little bit more passing from Dalton's side, but St. Paul, you just have to stack. You have to go up against those defensive backs. That's how you beat St. Paul. Is you got to stop. You have to try. You're not going to stop the run. You just have to try and contain the run against them because they just have such a good line that just wears you down and wears you down. But Dalton, they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They played in the WCAL and played against some very good competition there. And even Lucas was
beat them all. They were
on fire. I told you, the best 3-loss team in Division 7 football. And I think the turning point of that one was the fumble. Lucas up 10-7. The kickoff that got muffed. Dalton recovered it, went down, scored. So special teams might be in play as well.
Well, St. Paul might be the best 4-loss team in Division 7. But
true.
let's talk about the second game in that bracket. State number 4 Danville versus number 6 Lowville. 2 teams, just 1 loss between them. And I think adding Coldwater has kept the Devils at an elite level. Coming off of last year, that tragedy, Travis, where we thought they were going to beat Warren JFK, go to the state Final
Half a
Four.
foot away from that sack to end it.
So close. The only test the Blue Devils have faced all year was that OT game that you're looking at right here. East Knox in a mud pit where they had to beat them in extras. Outside of that, running clocks in 9 of 12 games for Danville. The Rockets are pretty good too, though. They've outscored their playoff foes 66-7, and 7 of their wins, they've been tested, are over teams that are in the postseason. Their defense rarely gashed by anyone. They've held 6 opponents to 1 score or less. So I think both of these games, very interesting, but that's 2 high-level squads in that number 2 versus number 6 matchup that you could see either squad moving forward from this one.
Well, you got to think that Danville game in Week 10 too, they're not going to have to face a muddy turf anymore. They're going to be on playing turf the rest of the way, so that's going to help them. That's the one reason how East Knox was able to be in that game, was because it just got so sloppy there that you couldn't get your footing. But still, that was a good test for Danville in Week 10. They already had the number 2 seed locked up. They already had a conference championship pretty much locked up too, and to be punched in the math by your rival, that helped them out. But for Lowellville, their quarterback, Balone, the senior, he has 1,748 yards passing, 819 yards rushing, that dual threat component. And Lucido, their receiver, 723 receiving yards. They also have another receiver, kind of like what Northmore had. They faced Northmore. That was their second toughest. It was a 12-point victory, I believe, or 12 or 13-point victory over Northmore in week number 6. But it's an offense kind of looking like that with Northmore. However, their quarterback can run the ball in like A.J. Bowers. So Danville's faced an offense like this before. It's just can their secondary just keep up?